Welcome, fellow business brokers. Thank you for joining us today. I am really excited because we are continuing our series called America's Top Business Brokers. And in this series, we're talking to some of the best business brokers around the country and learning from them because we can all learn from each other, become the best we possibly can. I'm really excited because today we have with us some of the best TRANSWORLD agents from around the country. This is called America's Top Business Brokers TRANSWORLD Edition. And I'm really excited because these brokers that we've got from TRANSWORLD are some of the best business brokers out there. And they're going to share their experience, their expertise, their knowledge, give us insight on what makes them so successful. So stay tuned. And I'm also excited. I want to tell you a little bit about TRANSWORLD themselves. But before we begin, please, if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the YouTube channel. It would be greatly appreciated. That would help support our educational program. And then also you'll get notified anytime a new video appears that helps help people buy and sell businesses. So thank you so much. About TRANSWORLD. TRANSWORLD started in 1975. And in I think it was 1991, Business Brokers of Florida, BBF lifetime member, Don Parrish, bought the business, and then Andy Cagnetta joined TRANSWORLD as an agent in 1995, and then 2 years later in 1997, he actually purchased TRANSWORLD himself, and over the next 12 years, he built TRANSWORLD into having 9 offices throughout Florida, and he had 90 agents throughout Florida, and at that time, he hooked up with United Franchise Group, and between him and United Franchise Group, over the next 10 years, they built 200 offices worldwide with over 600 agents. I believe TRANSWORLD is the largest business broker organization in the world. I might be wrong about that, but I think they are. And I'm a good friend of, Andy's a good friend of mine, and I know him really well. Andy's a great guy, and he's just had a lot of success with TRANSWORLD, and I can understand why. He's a good business person, and he's just an overall good person, generally a good person. So I want to go ahead and I want to introduce these agents that we have with us because I want to get right into the program. I want to hear what's made them so good. And the first person that I would like to introduce, is Gary Goldwasser. Gary, how you doing today?
I'm good, Jim. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, I appreciate you coming on, Gary. I really do. Gary, he works the Rocky Mountain area, and that includes Colorado, New Mexico, and Wyoming. And listen to this. He was Broker of the Year in 2020, the Broker of the Year in 2019, Broker of the Year in 2017, and then last year, he had the smallest deal in his office, and he also had the largest deal in his office, and the largest deal was $18 million. So kudos to you, Gary. You kicked butt last year. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we also got Randy Bring. Randy's a good friend of mine. At least I consider Randy a good friend of mine. How you doing, Randy?
I'm great, Jim. Thanks for having me today.
Hey, thanks for coming on. Randy is down in South Florida. Me and Randy both serve the Florida market. I'm in Central Florida. Randy's in South Florida. I've known Randy for a few years now. He's really given back to the organization. He's been highly involved with the International Business Brokers Association, the IBBA, over the years, serving on a lot of different boards for them, a lot of different committees. And in 2022, he's going to be the chairman of the IBBA. I'm really looking forward to that. Randy, you're going to do a great job for us in the IBBA. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
And Randy anticipates that later on this year, he's going to close on his 400th transaction. And he does about 22 transactions a year. He did $12 million in business volume in 2020. And he's just won a lot of awards. I'm not going to go through all the awards that he won. It's just the list just goes on and on. And we also got Jerry Brisson. How you doing, Jerry?
I'm doing fabulous, Jim.
Thank you, Jerry, for joining us. Jerry, as you can see,
he's thrilled to be here.
He's from Texas. He's joining us from Texas. He has sold over 200 businesses, and he's done over $90 million in enterprise value. He was selected in 2019. His team was selected in 2019 as the top deal making team. That's awesome. That's awesome, Jerry. Congratulations. And he is the current president of the Texas Association of Business Brokers, the Houston chapter, and he was indicted into the TRANSWORLD Hall of Fame in 2017. Again, Jerry, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
And then we've got Nathan Willis. Nathan, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Good, good. Nathan is a top producer in his office every year since he started with TRANSWORLD. And in 2020, he did almost $650,000 in gross commissions. So you had a pretty good payday last year, Nathan. Congratulations, buddy. Usually does about 7 to 10 deals a year. Between 2 and 5 of those deals are between $1 million and $5 million. So it sounds like he's in the same kind of, he serves the same kind of market that I do. And we also got with us JT Tatem from South Carolina and North Carolina. How you doing, JT?
Wonderful on Wonderful Wednesday, Jim. Thanks for having us.
Hey, thanks for joining us again. JT was with us last year on the same America's Top Business Brokers last year, and really appreciate the insight you gave us last year. I'm glad you came back again this year.
Glad to be back.
To share your experience and your knowledge. He is qualified as the IBBA Outstanding Producer for 2 years in business. He's done nearly $3 million in sold businesses in the last 2 years. And you're promoting currently 31 listings with a value of
Yes,
about
that's
$2
correct.
million. And he serves on the
that's right.
educational committee of the Carolina Virginia Business Brokers Association. And he's the vice president of TRANSWORLD's Business Advisory Ad Fund directors. So it's great that you're involved with the, not just with TRANSWORLD, but with the industry as a whole. So thank you, JT. And then we got with us Aaron Fox. How you doing, Aaron?
Doing well, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Good. I'm glad you could make it in because it's a little cold up there in Massachusetts, right? A little bit of snow on the ground.
Yeah, we just take our sleds into work these days.
Aaron is in the TRANSWORLD's President's Club. He won the IBBA Chairman's Award. And in 2020, he did 11 deals, over $5.5 million in deal volume, and his average size deal was $500,000. So guys, I really appreciate you guys joining us today. I really do. I have a lot of respect for TRANSWORLD as a franchise in our industry. You guys have been leaders in our industry, and I know a lot of TRANSWORLD brokers, and I'm just really excited you guys, some of the top business brokers in TRANSWORLD joining us today. So let's get right into this. What key advice would you guys give? And maybe I'll start with you, JT. What key advice would you give to a business broker or somebody thinking about getting into the business brokerage industry?
Yeah, good. Well, the first piece of it is, like in anything else, is having the commitment to see it through, especially in the business brokerage side of things, where, a lot of folks getting into the industry may be coming out of a secure position with a steady paycheck, never been in a commission only kind of role before. And, you go between the highs and the lows, the dry spells and the feast and famine. So having the commitment to say, I'm going to see this thing through, and know that, there's going to be a couple of months where maybe there's no activity, and then all of a sudden there's 3 deals closed that same exact month. And the commitment to be able to help the buyers and the sellers that you're working with through their process. Because it's going to take commitment for you to be successful as a broker. It's going to take them commitment to be successful as buyers and sellers that you're working with.
Great, great. Nathan, what about you? What advice would you give somebody thinking about getting into business brokerage?
I echo a lot of what JT said. I think having the runway, and more importantly, just having the mindset that you're going to be successful if you do the day in and day out activities that you got to do. And it can be challenging because like JT said, if you're coming off of a salaried position and now suddenly the sky's the limit, but in order to earn the income, you've got to work a process. You've just got to stay focused and know that if you're doing the right things, it'll all come together.
And you have to have faith in that process too. Like, you can't give up after 2 months. If you sit down and you come up with a plan for yourself, you have to stick through that plan. I totally agree.
Absolutely.
Randy?
Thanks, Jim. I'll tell you, at the risk of not wanting to turn this into an infomercial for the IBBA, there is a perfect answer in the IBBA. About 1.5 years ago, they developed a sort of a survey, an overview of the business broker industry, and it's called Class 090, and it's hours and hours of essentially interviews with about 6 brokers, myself included, giving the complete overview of the industry. And I would recommend that anybody that's just sort of dipping their foot into the business broker world, thinking about it, not sure what a day-to-day life of a broker looks like. Take that class online, and at the end of it, you will know you're 100% in or you're 100% out. And that would be my advice today.
That's great. That's great. I appreciate that. Aaron?
I would say really the key is you just got to look at everything as a long game. Nothing in this industry is ever going to happen fast. And, if you're honest with your own personal goals, honest with your clients, honest with your network, because people see through it. It's just you build this incredible pipeline. And it's really, that's the key focus. Is you've got to look at it, you take it a day at a time, but, know that if you're doing what's right, everything will come together.
Great. Jerry?
Yeah, I guess I agree with everything that's been said, but I've got two words. One is educate, and the other one's affiliate. And so educate, and Randy is a big part of the IBBA, but I think that the IBBA has some great education programs, and I think taking the CBI course is a game changer for a lot of us. So commit to educating yourself. There's tons of resources. And then affiliate, and again, I don't not to be an infomercial, but I think if you're what I found is being affiliated with TRANSWORLD has made a big difference to me because of the resources they've made available to me. So the two words I have is educate and affiliate.
I'm going to steal that from now on, Jerry. Educate and affiliate. I like that.
It's yours.
Gary, what about you, buddy?
Well, I hear a lot of people that want to jump into this. Oh, I want to, I'll just do it on the side. This is a full-time business, and it's the long runway. The same everybody's been talking about. I think a lot of people that get into this business are out within 6 months or 12 months, and they're just getting going. They're just getting their legs. So, and you got to be. I believe you got to be 50% marketing and 50% deal structure kind of person.
Right. And yeah, I got to agree with you, Gary. And I see a lot of brokers get into the industry and they're very excited, but you're right. They're out within 6 months, and you got to come into this industry with the expectation that your first year is going to be your roughest year. You might only do a deal or two, or you might not do any deals. And then in the second year, that's when you're going to start getting some momentum. But I really don't think usually, I know there are some differences, but usually you don't really start really killing it until your third year, really killing it, taking it to the next level. And second year, you're starting to make a living wage. But the first year is just tough. I think people, give up on that. Any advice you guys have for somebody that's new in the industry for like a year or two, and how they can become a better business broker?
Learn, never stop learning. Really concentrate on being genuine and knowing your clients, building a relationship. Get the sense to be don't make it so transactional, make it more relational.
I agree with you. Relationships is huge. And that's where you're going to get the referrals down the road too. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll add to that. Education, of course, as Gary mentioned, is probably foremost. In my years as a business broker, I've seen something that I've lovingly called the sophomore syndrome. And this is a second or third year business broker that begins to start to outsmart themselves. So they spend a year or two listing businesses, and then by the second or third year, they start trying to figure out which businesses they should list and which ones are going to sell, and they start pre-guessing and outsmarting themselves. And I would say to them that everybody on this panel and probably everybody watching this webinar, we have sold businesses that we've never ever thought would sell. We might list the business at $750,000. It ends up selling at $300,000. Look for the motivated seller, and don't second guess yourself. Don't outsmart yourself as to what's going to sell and what's not going to sell.
Well, let's touch on that for a minute, Randy, if you don't mind. What is everybody's opinion on quality versus quantity? just listing whatever you possibly can, or, just being more choosy about what listings you're going to take on? Like, is that, what opinions do you guys have on that?
I would say I'm with Randy on when I got into this business, I kept saying, well, gosh, I'd never want to buy that business. And you have to take yourself out of it, because that could be somebody else's treasure opportunity. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's not a good business.
Yeah. All right.
I would say that, I see, brokers kind of convert from the quantity to the quality model all the time. And I think a lot of them struggle with that. They've kind of have forgotten what made them successful, which was being, as Randy was saying, be less selective. I think it's okay to be a little bit selective, but if you're too selective, and I think you could select yourself out of business, and you end up with putting all your eggs in one basket. And in this business, that's not typically not a successful approach.
Mm-hmm. And you look at the TRANSWORLD model. We're fortunate because we have in each of our individual offices the ability to be able to market, to find the buyers, to find the sellers that are looking to sell, and then being able to go take them through the process. Okay. I say to all of our agents, put away your crystal ball, which is what Gary's saying. Okay. That your job is not to look into the future and decide whether or not the right buyer is going to come for that business. He is or isn't. We don't know. We're going to give everybody that shot. We're going to take them through the process to get the business prepared to sell for the right buyer when they do come along. And then occasionally, you're going to get a deal that may come that is that big deal. And, I'm speaking as one of the newest members of the TRANSWORLD team, and certainly probably the rookie on this panel. We have a mergers and acquisitions division in TRANSWORLD, so that when that big deal does come along, that could take 1.5 years or 2 years to come to fruition, I don't have myself or a brand new agent trying to figure out what the M&A experts in our division know how to do already. They do it every single day. They take that ball, run with it, deal with the teams for the sellers, the team for the buyers. Meanwhile, we're still working on the Main Street businesses, which is really where we're the experts. And, when that M&A deal closes 1.5 years, 2 years from now, whenever it might be, we're still part of that, but we didn't, to Jerry's point, put all our eggs in that basket. And how many times have they seen one of those big deals that they put all that effort into fall apart at the closing table? And now you just spent 1.5 years chasing that elephant. And meanwhile, all the, chickens in your backyard ran free, and you never took an egg out of the nest. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with that. You can't have all your eggs in one basket, and you can't have that one deal you're trying to carry to closing that, just that one egg. And if you drop it, it falls apart. And, that was your only deal you had for the year. But me personally,
Right.
I guess I disagree with you guys, and that's okay. Everybody has their own philosophy. I think that a new business broker should be not as choosy, and you take on what you can to list, and be honest with the seller and what the, what the ability of actually selling the business is, but
Right.
being a lot looser. But then, as your career goes on, I think you can then kind of concentrate more on quality, and hopefully have enough leads coming in. You can concentrate on that. But, I think everybody in our industry, that's something that we're always talking about, quality versus quantity, right? The first few minutes we were on the call, we were asking questions. A lot of you guys kept mentioning the same thing: education and IBBA. How many of you guys, by the raising your hand, let me put on the view here so everybody can see the gallery view. How many of you guys are IBBA members? Okay, so almost everybody. All right, great. I think it's a fantastic organization. They can a lot of great educational programs, and I think that's one of the keys is continuing to educate yourself. Somebody else had already mentioned that. What is the one thing that you guys really enjoy about being a business broker? Jerry, do you think of anything?
Yeah, listen, I enjoy learning, to be honest. As a business broker, you're always learning. You're always meeting new people, and every deal you do is different. Every business that you sell is different than the last business. So you're always working on something different. So I find it very energizing to always be doing something different and to always be learning.
Great.
Yeah, I think it just, even adding to that, Jerry, I think the challenge that goes along with it, like you said, you're always learning. How do you structure this? what way can you look at this? Like, look at what 2020 threw at us. I guarantee not one person on this panel sold a business between March and August the way they originally thought they'd sell it. It was, what's recurring revenue? What's a deferred revenue? What, how does this affect our sellers? Like, it was just the whole challenge of it was reworking the listing, working with the entrepreneur that owned it.
Anybody else?
Well, I'll add that, my favorite part of probably being a business broker is the celebratory steak and champagne dinner after closing. But beyond that, look, I mean, like I think everybody on this panel, most of the people on this webinar, many of us were entrepreneurs beforehand. For me, the ability to be able to sit down and meet a new business owner and understand how they make money, and some of them are absolutely brilliant at what they do, and they create net income in ways that never occurred to me. My casual reading is Inc. and Forbes and Entrepreneur magazine. So to be able to meet real life entrepreneurs in so many different professional and trade spaces, to me is the most fascinating, most enjoyable part of my career as a broker.
Randy, I gotta agree with you on that. Like I always, I grew up always just idolizing the entrepreneur, the small business owner, and I owned several small businesses before becoming a business broker, and I think that's one of the most rewarding things about being a business broker is you're interacting and meet with small business owners all the time, and you're seeing why some are successful, and you're seeing why others are not successful. You're seeing behind the curtain. You're seeing things that they don't tell, their employees don't know, and their CPA doesn't know, and their best friends don't know. You're kind of seeing behind the curtain on everything, and I think anybody who's looking to become a business person someday or opening their own business someday, I don't think there's a better thing than being a business broker. It's like a training ground in itself, just seeing behind the scenes, real world, not the classroom setting, but the real world type of situation. So I find that interesting. Anybody have anything else that they just really enjoy about business brokers? I want to add one more thing. I'm sorry. The other thing is it's different. Every deal is different. That's what I love.
Yeah, Jerry said that. Yeah, exactly.
Jim, I'd add too, not only do you get to sit beside these entrepreneurs, but a lot of the times they don't have a C-suite, they don't have a CFO, they don't have a COO. They've gone out and they've found a way to make money. And, we're here to advise them through a process that might be one of the larger liquidity events in their lifetime, quite possibly. And so I like to think and sometimes tell these clients, like, look, I'll act as your COO, I'll act as your CFO, I'll act as your sounding board, because most folks understand that to make good decisions, they got to have advisors around them giving them good information. So I think it's really fun that you get to kind of be a fractional player with these C-level people ongoing.
What about attributes? What kind of attributes do you think somebody needs to be a successful business broker? Personality or skills or?
I often tell the new folks on our team confidence first and foremost. I mean, we've all got a background that led us into this business. And if you're going to provide advisement to these sellers, you've got to be confident in the information you're giving them. Even if you're only 6 months into it, 6 months, 2 years, 6 years, whatever it is, you've got to be confident in your ability to do what it is you're telling them you're going to do.
I think, Jim, you've got to be, and we touched on this earlier, but you've got to be resilient. You've got to be persistent. In order to be successful in this business, you can't give up, because there are a lot of challenges, and we are, basically at heart, we're problem solvers. That's what we do. We solve problems. And if I asked, one of the agents I work with, if there are, if they've got any problems, and they say no, my response normally is yes, they are. Yes, there are, but you just don't know what the problems are.
You haven't found them yet.
There are problems. So you've got to be a problem solver, and you've got to be resilient. I think that's the key to being successful.
And a self-starter. You got to get up in the morning and be a self-starter. I think that's why a lot of small business owners end up doing pretty well as a business broker. Former small business owners, they are, self-starters.
Absolutely.
Well, to go back to what you said earlier, Jim, for me, it's the people and the problems. As Jerry just said, you are the problem solver. But characteristically, if you don't like people, you're probably not going to be a good broker. Okay. I mean, and the converse side of that thing is we would all probably say, you know, the business brokerage industry is a great industry if it wouldn't be for all those people. But you're going to deal with people. Okay.
Yeah.
You're going to deal with the seller. You're going to deal with the buyer. You're going to deal with the attorney. You're going to deal with the landlord. You're going to deal with the accountant. So being able to manage those relationships is key. And you don't have to be a type A or a type C. You can be any kind of personality, but you got to be able to fall in love with the people that you're going to deal with through the process.
And you have to be able to deal with the different personality types, because a lot of times people's, you know, it's an emotional experience for them. The seller, you know, they own the business for 20 years and it's a, you know, it's a very emotional experience for them. And you got a buyer that's, you know, that might be a little scared, and, you know, you just got to be able to deal with different personality types to get through those transactions. Totally agree with you, JT. Totally agree with you.
And a good move for a new broker agent coming in is to do a disc profile and understand what kind of personality you might be, and then understand what the other personality traits are and how to relate to them. Because, you know, I may be an A-type personality, or well, I can't deal with every person that I deal with the exact same way. It's not a cookie cutter approach. So if you understand disc profiling or any of those kinds of Myers-Briggs or any of those profiling things out there, you can start to identify when you have those first meetings with individuals where they fall, and then you adjust your approach to them. Don't try and make them adjust their approach to you, because that's not going to work.
You know, and you know, if you think about it, like what we do is we're not selling something that, you know, we're selling it, you know, within that hour. You know, a lot of the times we're dealing with people for months and months and months at a time. And, you know, I like to spend a lot of time on the phone with my buyers and sellers, especially up front, just trying to get to know them. I'm trying to learn about their wants and their needs and what they're trying to accomplish with the sale or a purchase. But, you know, I also want to build a rapport with them, you know, so that I can serve them better and I can understand them as a person better, you know, and it is a long-term type of relationship. It's not a short-term sales process.
I think you got to be patient. You have to have a lot of patience.
A lot of patience.
I also think I call it is it the Gumby? Used to be the little green thing. You have to be very flexible.
Gumby.
Yeah, I think you got to be more Gumby in this business. And I think you got to be a little bit of marketing and a little bit of deal structure. I mean, I think you need to have those skills. They're helpful.
Now, what advice would you guys give to somebody? Because like you guys are all, you know, I know some of you guys have been doing this for, you know, 20 years, and some of you also have been only doing it for a few years, but you guys are all top business brokers from all over the country. What advice would you give a business broker what would you tell them to get to where you guys are at now? You know, what advice would you give them?
Determination, absolute determination. You're gonna meet people who, you know what you do better than you do, and you've just got to keep, you know, trucking forward, you know, kind of brush off and just keep going with it. I mean, you can't. I joke about it. That first commission, I think that was the hardest $6,000 I ever earned in my life.
You know, I use the Peyton Manning saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So
Wow.
That's kind of what I stand by.
I like that. Gary, you got a lot of good sayings. I'm going to start writing these down.
No.
Anybody else on, you know, what you think separated you from, you know, being an average business broker and bringing you to the top of the industry?
I think I could probably add to that, with the understanding that this is a relationship-driven business. It is relationships that I think ultimately support a really successful business brokerage practice. Brokers wanting to either launch very quickly or go to a second level need to develop relationships in their communities, however they do it, whether it's formal networking or one-to-one relationships with the people in the community who are in the best position to refer business to them. You need to establish an identity, a brand. You need to develop trust with the attorneys and the CPAs and the bankers and the financial planners and all the people that refer business to us. And without giving away any trade secrets, I mean, that's how I built my career. I get to know everybody who's in a really, really good position to refer business to me. And then I earn their trust and I make them look very, very good when they refer their client to me. And that I think is how you take your business to the next level.
Randy, that's awesome. That's shift right there. I think that's a good shifting point. Where do you guys, get, that's the biggest thing with new brokers or brokers who've only been doing it for a few years is, how do I market myself? How do I advertise myself? Where do I get, listing leads from? What kind of guidance would you give them, or what are you guys doing in your practice right now to get listing leads?
I think you got to do a bunch of things. I don't think you lay your sword on one marketing structure. I just think there's several things that everybody should do. Everybody has a different opinion about what they do. And build relationships like Randy said. That's a big deal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's kind of a key piece is those relationships. It's, there's, we look at the business broker the network, the group of us, there's really not a ton of business brokers. And, getting those relationships, they're just key because you know the people, they trust you, they like you, your name's going to come up.
Yeah, I think if you talk to most experienced business brokers, they'll talk about networking as the kind of the long-term game. And I think that the larger network that you can build for referrals, I think the more successful you'll be in the long term. And that has to do, as was said earlier, with professionals, so with attorneys and with CPAs and financial planners. It has to do with networking in the community and in general through the chambers of commerces and so forth. But networking is the long game. We do a lot of other things that I think are more short term in nature, but networking and relationships is the long game in this business, I believe.
Jerry, I don't think anybody could have said any better than that. I think that is definitely the long game is referrals. I mean, let's just face it, when somebody gets a referral, refers you, chances are you're getting such a good recommendation at that point, they're not going to call anybody but you. Absolutely. And, they've already, been saying this person's fantastic, what they do, give this person a call, da, 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 da. You've won the game right there. And that is the best thing you can do. And like you said, it could be anything from, CPAs to attorneys, to any financial planners and et cetera, and even, past buyers and sellers. And then for the new brokers, that's a game you've got to establish, and it's going to take you a long time to get to that point where your practice is built mainly on referrals. And when you get to that point, that's when you're going to be, you're a very successful business broker. In the meantime, what kind of
Then you have a hard time retiring because the business keeps coming. Right?
Keeps coming to you.
Yeah.
Well, that's a cool thing. I mean, you can always do 1 or 2 deals a year and kind of cut back and do 1 or 2 deals a year and still make good money. But back in the day when you guys were first starting, or you talked to a new broker who's only been in the industry for a couple of years, and what do you guys recommend for getting your name out there short term?
Well, one of the benefits for us, I think, and being part of the TRANSWORLD family is they come with a marketing, strategy, a marketing plan. And I remember being in training school, and Randy came in to speak to the class, and our instructor was talking about your elevator pitch and what do you say the first time you meet a person. And I loved the way Randy said. He said, somebody said, "What do you say? What's your elevator pitch?" And Randy said, "I sell businesses." And it was just simple, okay? But he didn't make people that he was networking with or talking to or marketing to try and figure out what he does. He made it simple. And then that person may or may not become a buyer or a seller, but they may know somebody who is. And so when they have that conversation, I'm thinking about, quitting my job and going into, I met this guy, Randy, he sells businesses. You should call him. I mean, if you can make people be your advocate and your champion, that's a huge part of it. They know people that I'll never come to know, right? So TRANSWORLD would say, hey, get involved in the community for sure. And obviously, when we did our program last year, Jim, one of the guys on the program really relied a lot on the digital marketing. and, you know, the Internet of Things today. And so, you know, Randy said earlier, you got to have, you know, you got to have your own brand. Well, we're part of a brand. We have the TRANSWORLD brand, but we also have to do our own spin on that on a local level. So, you know, you got to do the digital things. Are you, you know, is it social media? Is there, do you have a website built? Obviously we do. And, you know, do you have things that make it easy for people who want to do business with you to do business with you? And so I think that's one of the easiest things. As Jerry said, there's not a lot of business brokers out there, and a lot of people don't know where to go to look for one. The appointment I had today for a guy who's got a restaurant that's 27 years old, and he has the building and he wants to sell it for $1.8 million to $1.9 million. My first question to him when I met was, how'd you find me? He said, I Googled business brokers in the upstate. You were at the top of the list. I called you. And he said to me, and after today's meeting, I don't think I need to look any further. Great. So, you know, there's that digital footprint out there is a big part of the way people are looking for you and I today. So you better make sure you got some kind of a presence there.
And not only when they find you, like, you know, you could do other types of marketing and advertising, and then they Google your name and you come up, you know, you have to have that digital footprint where they're like, oh, that person's really embedded in the industry. I'm seeing them over and over and over again. So it's not just somebody finding you in the first place, but nowadays I think people are searching after they find you. They're doing their research,
validating you. They want to
Validating.
validate that what they found was the right choice.
Right.
And Jim, one thing is I want to say is, and you know, when I first started out, and I honestly couldn't spell business brokerage. I just started, but I had to convince people that I knew a little bit about business.
We're going to quiz you later. We're going to quiz you later, Jerry.
We've all been there, right? So, but we're advantaged at TRANSWORLD, not to promote TRANSWORLD, but it was very easy for me to say, hey, TRANSWORLD, I'm with TRANSWORLD. We've been around for 40 years. We've sold over 10,000 businesses. We've sold every kind of business that you can imagine. And we've got hundreds of thousands of buyers in a database. I mean, what else do you need to know, right? So we're really advantaged in if somebody is starting new with TRANSWORLD, they're very, very much advantaged. I can't imagine starting out in this business and not being affiliated. I think would be, you know, it would be a challenge.
Yeah, Jim, I mentor, I think we have like 18 brokers now in our office. And so one of the first things I tell them is, look, get a name, make a list of 100 people you know. I don't care who they are, friends, people you used to work with, and go have coffee with them. And so I spent the first 6 months of my being a business broker, probably having 3 cups of coffee a day with 3 different people. So 15 cups of coffee a week. And
That explains a lot, Gary.
yeah.
Now I get it.
Yeah, now I'm all jittery. But yeah, so that's what I tell them to do.
Yeah, I think that's a great starting point, circle of influence when you're starting out as business brokers, right down there. And I did this, I used to sell, in college, I used to sell Cutco knives. You guys ever heard of Cutco knives? And one of the things we had to do as a marketing strategy is we had to write down 300 people that we know. And you're like, 300 people, but it's really, I mean, really easy to go down and start making that list of 300 people. When I got in the business brokerage industry, that's what I did. I just started writing down 300 people that I knew. That's how I started marketing and advertising, was my circle of influence, letting everybody I know, know that that's what I'm now doing. And, at first they're skeptical because, that's the new thing for you. But the more you reach out and you're putting stuff out there and letting people know that you're doing that, after a while, like, wow, this, they've really, became successful in this industry. And I think that works a lot. People always ask me, how do you market and how do you advertise? And, I don't know about you guys. I don't feel like there's a secret sauce. We talked about this last week. I don't think there's a secret sauce. Like, you do this one thing and all these leads are going to be pouring in. You've got to do 3 to 5 different things. You got to do them consistently.
That's a key word.
And it could be anything. I mean, whether you're doing cold calling or you're sending out letters or sending out postcards, or you're doing drop-offs, or if you're, doing Google AdWords or Facebook AdWords or whatever you're doing, you just got to keep doing it over and over again. And you've got to do a couple different sources. There's not really a secret sauce. I mean, you just advertise like you would any other business, correct?
Right. And consistent, as you said.
And
That's the most
consistent.
important thing. You can't try it once. Well, I did it this week and it didn't work. Let me go try something different next week. It has to be over and over and over again.
Well, and the other thing is you got to keep changing things up a little bit, because what worked last week is not going to work this week, or what worked last year is not necessarily going to work this year, especially with digital marketing today. I mean, things are always changing.
Right.
So you've
Right.
got to continue to adapt and change. But I absolutely agree. I mean, I've been a marketer for most of my career, and it's in this business, it's pretty much guerrilla marketing, and it's a lot of pretty basic marketing stuff. And you've got to be consistent, but it's got to be lots of different things. It can't be it's not just one thing. I've not come across the silver bullet. It doesn't, I don't.
That's it, right? No silver bullet, right?
And it takes 6 to, my degree's in communications, and we studied a lot about advertising in college, and say advertising takes 6 to 12 months to really, you have to do it for 6 to 12 months before it really, people start sinking in people's head. And then later on, I heard you have to do 18 to 24 touches to somebody before it sinks in. So, if you're looking at it that way, you need to be reaching out to somebody at least twice a month, for an entire year before you start seeing results coming back. And that twice a month doesn't have, it shouldn't be email every time, or a letter every time, or a phone call every time. Just mixing it up, whatever it is. So, any other advice you guys have for business brokers in general before I want to get into I'm sorry, guys. Before I get into another question, anybody else have any other advice? No, that's all right. I want to bring up something kind of controversial. What do you guys think about co-brokering?
Oh, I'll take it.
It's not controversial for any of us. Go ahead, Aaron. It's not controversial on our side.
Yeah, I love it. Up in Boston, I'm going to be honest, there's not a lot of it going on. I wish there was more, because at the end of the day, all of our responsibility is to sell the business. Let's sell the business, right? I was super excited. I got a big co-broke deal done during COVID. And I was bragging about it all through, we had May closing on this business in a shutdown state, right? So it was great. I wish there was more of it. I truthfully think that there's not another broker in my general area that I truly would view as a competitor, not because they're not good at what they do, but because I truly think we all add something to our market. And I enjoy working with them. I'd love to do more deals. I want to see these people get on board with us for this. It's, the best thing for us to do to get better market penetration so that people wouldn't think about selling a business without a broker is to sell more of them with brokers. So let's work together and sell more deals.
Right.
Yeah. I'll add, Jim, that by telling you that it is somewhat of a loaded question for this panel, because I think I know where we all stand on this. I participated in the debates, if that's what you want to call them, over many, many years on co-broking. And it really comes down to what I think Aaron said. What is in the best interest of the client? Ask the question of the owner of the business. Should I co-broke or should I not co-broke? And I think it would be a very rare seller that would say, of course, we don't want you to co-broke. Of course we want you to. We want you to work with the best possible buyer of my business, regardless of whether it's your buyer or not your buyer. Brokers that don't co-broke, in my opinion, are fundamentally putting their own financial interest in front of their clients. And that's wrong on every level that I see it.
No matter how they spin it, they're putting their own financial interest. No matter how they spin it, at the end of the day,
that's the way I've always seen it.
I agree, Randy.
And you look at the different states. Not every state is a licensed state, right? You guys in Florida are, California is, et cetera, et cetera. South Carolina and North Carolina are not, and that's why we have a plethora of people who don't co-broke. But many of us have gone and taken on the real estate side of it anyway. And if you go through real estate training, your fiscal responsibility, your fiduciary responsibility is to the seller. who is your client, to get them the deal done. And as Randy said, we're all saying it the same way. And if you put your commission before that person, then you're not doing it. You're not acting with reasonable care. You're not doing the things that you're supposed to do as an agent. And it just so happens you happen to be a business broker agent, but you're still an agent and you're selling it, and your commission should be the last thing. That's the fruit of you doing the job the right way. That should not be the motivator.
So Jim, in Houston, our competitors, I guess we call them competitors, don't co-broke. We are a pro co-broke office. I have 16 agents in the Houston office, and we all co-broke with each other. So it is a competitive advantage to us, to be honest, that the fact that the others won't co-broke with us, because what we tell sellers is that when you list with one of us, you're listing with all of us. So in other words, if I take the listing at the very first meeting, I'm going to present that listing to the rest of the agents, and whoever's got a buyer is going to bring their buyers to me, and we're going to co-broke. So we work together. 16 of us work together, co-broking with each other, but we don't co-broke outside because the other folks in Houston don't co-broke. But we're open to it, and because for all the reasons that have been said, but basically because it's in the best interest of our client, and we're there to do the best deal for the client, get a maximum value.
And Jerry, if those competitors of yours in the Texas market and the Houston market would co-broke, would you guys co-broke with them?
Absolutely, yeah,
That's
absolutely,
fantastic.
yeah, with the business brokers. We will co-broke with business brokers, absolutely.
In Denver, we have the same deal going on as where Jerry is. We have business brokers, but they don't want to co-broke with us. We co-broke within our office, and it's a team approach, and we do tons of co-broking within our office. And if we have the opportunity, if people would co-broke with us outside the office, and it does happen on rare occasions, but they just don't want to.
Nathan, what's your thought?
I think for the new folks, without a doubt, co-brokering is like the quickest way to get yourself involved in a process and to hopefully get some experience by way of watching the listing agent, do their thing. In order to meet the goals that I want to hit every year, I without a doubt have to co-broke. I think last year I co-broked a couple of deals. And so at any point my listing load starts feeling light, I start taking a look at, if I've got buyers looking for particular businesses that I don't have, then I'm immediately looking at what my coworkers have. So as Gary said, we're big proponents of it. I don't think we'd hit the numbers we hit without co-brokering.
Well, Randy and I are from Florida, and Florida, as everybody knows, on this panel, is a co-brokering state. And, we have an organization called Business Brokers of Florida. And the whole main purpose behind Business Brokers of Florida is that we co-broke with each other. And so it's kind of foreign to me, I don't know about Randy, to think that somebody wouldn't even want to co-broke, because, I can co-broke, with Randy. I've co-broked with his office down there in South Florida a couple of times. And, I got a buyer that calls me up on a business that I have for sale, and maybe it just went, this happens all the time. It went under contract, and I start doing a search, find another business that meet their needs. Maybe it's a little bit off, that they wouldn't have found the other broker's listing because it's just a little bit off. But I'm like, they like this business, maybe they'll like that, and I put it in front of them, and then they do, and you get deals done, and Florida sells.
The Florida model is an absolutely stunning model of, in my opinion, how it should work. And it works almost directly like the Realtor MLS model. It's an incredible way to sell more businesses. And it's the only environment that I've ever known in my 20 years as a business broker. I can't imagine being in a market where the only businesses that I can show a buyer are that which I have, or maybe in my office. But I get it. I understand it. In other markets, particularly if you've been able to build up an office, 10, 12, 20 people, there's enough activity in that office. But I think Jim and I both understand and both agree that We've got a very, very good model here in Florida, and I'd love to see it working in many other states.
And that's why I want to bring it up as much as I possibly can. And I do, anybody that listens to my programs, I always try to fit in the co-brokering situation, because it is something that, you know, I would love I would love to see it spread across the country, because I think it's really good for the sellers. I think it's really good for the buyers, and I think it's good for the brokers.
How many businesses, Jim, right now are in the BBF database for sale?
2,500.
Okay, so if I'm sitting and I'm working with a buyer, of course we'll take a look at my personal inventory, and we'll look at what's in my office and other TRANSWORLD agents. But the odds are I'm going to lose that buyer, because statistically they probably won't find something in there. But out of 2,000 or 3,000 businesses, they may be interested in a electrical contracting business, and bam, there's 11 of them that come up, and I can show all of them and share that fee. It's a great model. 50% of what I do is co-broke. Half of my deals, half of my career.
Yeah, about between a third and 50% of the deals I do are co-broke.
Interesting.
Yeah, and Jim, I guess we're talking about co-broking being in the best interest of the seller, but you know, from what Randy's explaining and you guys are talking about, it's also very good for the buyer, right? Co-broke situation, when a buyer contacts you, if you've got 3,000 businesses to sell them, you're more likely to be interested in developing a relationship with that buyer than if you've only got 10 businesses to sell them. The buyers kind of go by the wayside quickly, because if you don't have anything to sell them, then you just kind of move on to the next buyer.
Perfectly put.
And if you're exactly right, Jerry. And if I'm doing a deal with Randy, for
It's good
instance,
for the buyer.
and it's good for the broker. If I'm doing a deal with Randy, maybe I wouldn't be able to do a deal if I didn't co-broke, like Randy had said.
Right.
But also, you know, it's not that I'm giving up half my commission to Randy. I mean, you know, he's getting half the commission, but he's picking up half my workload. And so by him picking up half that workload, it allows me to focus my attention on other things and doing other deals. And now I've got more eggs in a basket that we talked about in the very beginning of this program, that, you know, the more eggs you have in the basket at one time, the better, and, you know, closing more transactions. I've got one last question I want to ask you guys. What or how do you think TRANSWORLD has made you a better business broker, or got your feet off the ground, or whatever it is? How has TRANSWORLD helped you in your career as a business broker? Jerry, we'll start with you.
Sure. Well, as I said, I didn't know anything about business brokerage when I started. So basically, TRANSWORLD taught me how to be a business broker. You know, when you're with a group like TRANSWORLD, you get to interact with some of the best business brokers in the country, and I can pick up the phone anytime I want. I can call, you know, Randy, I can call any number of folks in TRANSWORLD, and they will help me. And they also provide the processes and the systems at a national level that I wouldn't have otherwise. So basically it's being part of a team, and getting the support that you need when you start, but also on a continual basis. That I think is a huge difference maker for me. It has been a huge difference maker.
Awesome. Thank you, Jerry.
Well,
Randy?
for me, let me count the ways. Starts at the top with a most remarkable CEO and broker in Andy Cagnetta, who has created a very, very special environment for all of us to work in, whether we're corporate guys down here in Florida, or franchisees, or agents for franchisees. He's created an environment that is essentially a very, very large support system built around business brokers. We're blessed that he's not a producer. Look, there's many small offices where there's two agents, and the owner is also selling businesses, and everyone's kind of running into each other. But from day one, our CEO has made it very, very clear that his role, his position, is to provide a support system for the agents. And I mean, everybody acknowledges that he has done an absolutely world-class job of being able to do that. And I think that's a good reason why our offices nationally are so successful, and why we as individual business brokers are so successful.
I want to, Randy, I just want to add to that. I'm not a TRANSWORLD agent. I'm an independent, but I want to add to that, watching Andy Cagnetta over the years, he's not only done a lot for the TRANSWORLD, but he's done a tremendous amount for our industry as a whole. And our industry as a whole really owes him, especially here in Florida, but all over the country as well, owes him a lot of gratitude. He really has a big heart when it comes to our industry. Anybody else want to add to the TRANSWORLD?
I was going to say, I was going to jump on the Randy bandwagon there too, because Andy, for a CEO that's so genuine, it's just, you can count on one hand all the great leaders you've worked for in your life. And he'd be right up there at the top. Just a great person who does every little detail of what it needs to do to build this business to what it is. And the other thing that's great about our company is we do have all the processes in place, and we do have a large buyer pool that we can control. Those are great things that come with the TRANSWORLD team. And we have great culture. We have an amazing culture here. And even though we're all in different cities and stuff, we have this kind of band of brothers that I'm sure is kind of maybe unique to other people, but sure is unique, I feel like, in our group.
That's awesome.
Well said.
I think that was really well said. And hey, guys, I really appreciate all you guys being on here today and, talking to us and giving us your insight on how we can all be better business brokers. And, this is going to be an ongoing series that we're going to be doing over the next couple months with other franchises and other independent companies. And I just really appreciate you guys joining, because I know you guys are some of the top business brokers, not just the TRANSWORLD, but period across the country. And thank you so much for joining me today. I really do. That was great insight. And for those of you guys who are listening again, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. It'll be greatly appreciated. You help support this educational program. And until next time, work hard, work smart, and keep making those buyer-seller connections. Thank you.